Hi, boys and girls. Yesterday in reading, I got to talk to you about good questions, right? And we specifically called those thick and thin questions. So we have been kind of used to asking thin questions, which just give you a yes or no answer, or the answer is right in the text, right? Questions like who, what, where, when, how many. And then we talked about what a thick question is, which is one that is harder to answer. So it might have many answers, or you might have to really think about it to make a good guess at your answer. So I'm going to read you a book that I absolutely love. It's kind of an old book. In fact, it's also kind of worn out looking, but it's called Charlie Anderson. And as I read this book, I'm going to show you how I can answer good questions as I'm reading to help make sure I understand what's going on. Okay, so we're not just asking questions just to ask questions. There's a reason to ask the questions. And good readers, as they're reading, if something doesn't make sense, they ask the question and then they kind of check and look around and think about the story again to make sense of what's going on. Okay, to make sure they understand. And this book has some things in it that are kind of confusing, so it's a good book to read. Okay, here we go. Charlie Anderson. It's kind of a dark book. Let me get closer. There we go. One cold night, a cat walked out of the woods, up the steps, across the deck, and into the house where Elizabeth and Sarah lived. A cat. Wonder whose cat it is. He curled up next to their fireplace to get warm. He watched the 6 o'clock news on TV. He tasted their dinner. He tried out their beds. Okay, so at first I said, I wonder whose cat it is, right? Has the answer come right out in the story yet? No, and I wonder is a good thick question, right? I'm wondering. He's trying out their beds, so this means they let a strange cat into their house. I wonder where his real owners are. He decided to stay, and the girls named him Charlie. Every morning, Charlie disappeared into the woods again. Why is he disappearing every morning into the woods? I wonder if he's hunting. Wonder where he's going. So I just asked some more thick questions. I said, why is he going into the woods? And I wonder where he's going. At night, when he came home, Elizabeth brushed him clean, fed him dinner, and made a space for him at the foot of her bed. He liked Elizabeth's bed the best. Sometimes she would wake up in the middle of the night and hear him purring in the dark. I wonder why he liked Elizabeth's bed the best. Maybe it was fluffier. Maybe she didn't move as much in the middle of the night. Sarah called him baby and dressed him up in doll clothes. I'm kind of going to put my anchor chart up over here so I can kind of look at it again. How come do you think the girl dresses him up like a baby? Maybe she wishes she had a doll. Maybe she wishes there was a baby in the house. Those are good, thick questions, right? And I'm paying attention to what's going on in the story. Here we go. When it snowed, Elizabeth and Sarah's mother heated Charlie's milk before he left for the woods. He grew fatter and fatter, and every day he purred louder and louder. Okay, so I'm going to use some schema here and ask my question to make sure that I understand what's going on. So, if he's getting fatter every day, I wonder if that means that he's eating a lot. I wonder if that means that Charlie isn't a boy. Maybe he's a girl going to have babies. I wonder. See, I have some schema about that because I had a cat one time that disappeared and she came back kind of fat and she kept getting fatter and fatter and she ended up having kittens. So that has happened to me before. So I have schema about that. So I wonder if Charlie is a girl. He's purring, and I know that purring cats are happy cats. So he's definitely happy. On weekends, the girls stayed with their father and stepmother in the city. They wanted to bring Charlie with them, but their mother said he'd miss the woods. Charlie's a country cat, she told him, or told them. So if they have to go to a different house on the weekends, I wonder if their parents are divorced. I guess that would make sense, wouldn't it? Do you see how I'm asking questions to make sure I understand what's happening in the story? I read something. Did it come right out and say that their parents were divorced? No, but it gave me a clue, didn't it? And I could figure that out. So they're gone for some weekends to stay with their dad. One stormy night, Charlie didn't come home. Elizabeth and Sarah stayed out on the deck and called his name. But no Charlie. Where was he? Why wouldn't he come out of the woods? Was he all right? I wonder where he is. It's stormy. He probably found a place to sleep. Do you see how I'm asking questions again? I wonder where he is. But then I kind of came up with a good answer, right? I don't know the answer. I made a guess. And that's okay. Good readers do that. All night long, Elizabeth listened to the rain beating on the roof and the wind rattling the windows. Was he cold? Was he hurt? Where was Charlie? So she's asking questions too. She's wondering. She's worried. Does she know the answer? No, she doesn't either. In the morning, Elizabeth and Sarah looked for him. They asked the lady down the road if she'd seen their cat. She said no and offered them cookies, but they were too worried to eat anything, even her chocolate chip cookies. They went to the new house on the other side of the woods. Have you seen our cat? They asked. His name is Charlie. He's very fat and has gray striped fur. We have a cat with gray striped fur, said the man, but his name's not Charlie. It's Anderson. He's upstairs asleep on our bed. They heard a meow, and down the stairs came a very fat cat with gray striped fur. Charlie! Sarah and Elizabeth cried. No, that's Anderson, said the woman. We've had him for 7 years. Right, Anderson? He looked at her and began to purr. Okay, what is going on? Let's go back and think because it's kind of confusing, right? This is exactly the point that I wanted to read this book to you for. This spot in the story gets confusing. So before we keep reading, it's good to kind of think about what's happening. So their cat disappears every night and comes back in the morning, right? And then these people said they had a cat that looked like Charlie. And then when the girls saw the cat, they said Charlie, but the people said, no, that's Anderson. We've had him for 7 years. So if they've had him for 7 years, then it cannot be Charlie. It has to be Anderson. I wonder what is going on. I wonder if there are two cats. I wonder if Charlie could have two names. But it's Charlie, Sarah said. He looked at her and purred louder. Is he ever here at night? Elizabeth asked. Anderson is a hunter, said the man. He prowls the woods at night. Wait a minute. He's at their house at night. But he leaves in the morning. I wonder if he goes to both houses. Charlie sleeps in my bed at night, Elizabeth said. He leaves for the woods after breakfast. Well, Anderson comes home at breakfast time, said the woman. He leaves right after dinner. Are you noticing what's happening? The cat leaves their house in the morning, and he comes home to their house, and then he leaves at dinner. They all looked at the cat. He sat at their feet, very happy and very fat. They call him Charlie Anderson now. Do you know why they call him Charlie Anderson? Is it because he kind of has two homes? He is their cat, and his real name is Anderson. But that sneaky little cat comes and visits these girls at night and sleeps in their bed and eats their food. Is Charlie Anderson really a hunter? It doesn't come right out and say that. In fact, they say he's a hunter, but that's just what they think. But the cat's actions are telling us that he's not. He just goes and gets a food from other people's houses. Sometimes in bed at night, Elizabeth asks him, "Who do you love best, Charlie Anderson?" And she can hear him purring in the dark. I think he loves them all. Just like Elizabeth and Sarah, Charlie has two houses, two beds, two families who love him. He's a lucky cat. Now, what do they mean that just like Elizabeth and Sarah, Charlie has two houses, two beds, two families that love him? What does that mean? Do you remember back? See, good readers go back and forth too. Let's see. On weekends, the girls stay with their father and stepmother in the city. So that's a different family that loves them, and they probably have different beds and everything, right? So the cat does too, right? He has a place he stays in the morning and a place he stays at night, just like the girls. So I think the author is trying to say that you can be in two places and still be loved, right? Okay, so I will be giving you a story where you can ask questions to make sure you understand what's going on in the story. All right?